No doubt about it, we're starting to reach a point in time where the Xbox Series X is coming to its own. Is it actually going to continue to beat the PlayStation 5 in terms of performance time and time again? Is it going to continue to do so when it comes to all these different types of ideas with, frame rate and resolution? Well, you know what? I think it's probably something that we could maybe even consider. This is absolutely one of the things that I feel like gamers are going to get behind and be really excited about when it comes to Xbox. Not that it's going to be some huge thing. Like I've stated numerous times, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are two of the closest matched in performance that any Xbox and launching PlayStation have ever been. And this is per multiple developers leading up to the launch of these consoles. So who do you trust in these instances? Do you trust like the YouTubers who have been talking about how Xbox has such a big gap lead in performance that it should be getting all these extra frames and whatnot? Or do you believe the developers who are actually working on this stuff? And I tend to side with the developers on this. And what we've seen so far is that either if a PlayStation has better performance, then it's not by much. And if Xbox has better performance, it's usually not by much. The exception kind of being Lego Star Wars, which is a little bit odd if you think about it. But, still, at the end of the day, I still think that it's very interesting to see how gamers have been reacting to some of the performance differences and stuff like that. I can't wait personally to see what happens in the future with this. But, it is one of those things where we as fans can look into it and go, this is so strange to see the way that Microsoft has kind of done things completely different than they've done before. So I want to get into it. What's up, everybody? Crap Gamer here with Crap Gamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to check it out with me. We do gaming reviews, news, all that kind of stuff right here. And as you guys can imagine, it's been pretty crazy lately. So I just want to take a second to say thank you guys. And if you do spend some time watching my videos, please leave a like. That's pretty much all I ask. It helps out tremendously. And if you're going to spend time watching videos and you like them, it helps the videos to be seen and it helps the channel to grow. So keep that in mind when you guys go forward as well. So Digital Foundry was doing their thing once again. We see Tiny Tina's Borderlands kind of spin-off getting kind of the showcase. And you know what? It's pretty cool in my opinion. What we've been seeing is Xbox is doing incredibly well thanks to numerous reasons. The added support for VRR gives Xbox Series X an edge. We know that PlayStation 5 is going to get it eventually, but it gives it an edge over the PlayStation 5 for better frame rates in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. According to Digital Foundry, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands gives nearly the same frame rate performance when running in resolution mode, which is dynamic 4K 60 frames on both PS5 and Series X, but when switching to performance mode, which is 1080p and dynamic 120 frames per second, however, the frame rate varies depending on the display in question and the console being used. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands can achieve a constant 60 frames per second on a 60Hz screen on both consoles in lower resolution performance mode, but on a 120Hz screen, the frame rate ranged around 80 to 120 frames per second on PlayStation 5 and slightly higher with 90 to 120 frames per second on Xbox Series X. Maintaining a constant stream of 120 frames per second will still be hard for both consoles, and there will be occasional stutters. But overall, thanks to VRR support on Xbox Series X, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands will output a more consistent 120 frames per second on the current flagship Xbox console. The lack of VRR on PlayStation 5, hence being something that's not going to be updated for a little bit yet, brings a noticeable difference in terms of frame rates. Thanks to its lightning fast solid-state drive, though, PlayStation 5 still has slightly better loading speeds. So take note that Sony Interactive Entertainment has actually confirmed VRR to release on the PlayStation 5 in the coming months. All previously released games will need to be updated by their respective developers to make use of the feature. However, players will also be able to force VRR in unsupported PS5 games, which could and technically should improve video quality for some games. In the case of unexpected visual effects, however, players will need to wait until the games are patched to fully optimize with VRR. So if you didn't know, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a spin-off of the Borderlands franchise, and it's available now. So we see that right now there's another game that's newer released. It's actually kind of performing very, very well on the Xbox Series X. If you look at what they're able to kind of bring to the table in terms of graphical mode, dynamic 1800p to 2160p with the 4K 60 frames, alongside a lower resolution performance, which unlocked 120 frames per second support on the consoles with the appropriate display. Series S has just one mode, however, targeting 60 frames, which can take you from 960p to 1440p, which is interesting. It's still going to be able to do like the 60 frames on a current gen game, which is, I guess, good. And when comparing the resolution modes on PS5 and Series X, frame rates are generally acceptable using 60 FPS as a target. On each console, you'll spot occasional lurches into the high 50s, just as alpha effects fill the screen, or even while turning the camera rapidly. It's hardly a worst case scenario, but these drops do stick out in the heat of the action. This goes for PS5 mostly. Perhaps predictably, though, Series S is essentially less stable overall performance. Shifting focus to the Series X and PS5 performance mode, it's an interesting wrinkle that the option actually offers two different experiences depending on your connected display, which is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. The nature of the performance mode changes if your console is hooked up to a 120Hz screen, and as long as 120Hz is selected on the console's front end, the frame rate becomes unlocked using the performance mode. But again, it's a little bit better experience on the Xbox Series X. Microsoft has done a really good job at putting out a platform that has honestly kind of showcased that they really know what they're doing, right? Like, these things are starting to come into play. Not this huge buffer difference or anything like that some people were claiming, but it's still nice to see that Microsoft has indeed come a long way where it comes to being able to have a console that can perform very, very well. And fans are definitely kind of showing up for this type of stuff. Fans want to see these types of news, want to see these types of announcements. They want the Xbox to perform well, and seeing it perform well has been an amazing feat, to be quite honest with you guys. And so yeah, it's awesome to see that. To be honest with you, I expected Xbox to win a good number of these, but not by a ton, right? Like, I'm not expecting 120 hertz on a new game, this generation game, and only 60 on PlayStation. Like, I'm not expecting that at all. There's been some aberrations, like with the Mass Effect trilogy, that was 120 frames on Xbox, but that was an Xbox One game, and I've already been over this a million times. Xbox One had the ability to code in for 120 frames per second, despite the fact that the console couldn't actually do that. So with the PlayStation 5, you need to completely rewrite everything. It can't be just a simple patch or something like that. So with that being said, I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I'm going to link this. What do you guys think about Xbox getting all this performance now? It's really crazy to see how it's working out. It's actually pretty unbelievable. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up. Crap Gamer out.